In this brief video, I wanted to go over a few of the problems at the end of the chapter 5, that illustrates some gross income exclusions. In the first case, we have Hazel, and she has income from a variety of sources. And the first is on the gain on the sale of county bonds. That would be included in income. The interest on U.S. government bonds, so these are federal bonds, that is $400. That would be included. And then the interest on the state income tax refund would also be included in income. The interest on the county bonds for tax purposes is not taxable, and the patronage dividend from the Potato Growers Cooperative is also not taxable. Therefore, only $1,400, or $800 plus $400 plus $200, is taxable as gross income and must be included for Hazel. In problem 54, we have Albert, who set up some education funds for twins that he has, Kim and Jim. Each received $20,000 when they were 5 years old. 13 years later, when they graduate from high school, the fund's value in Kim's fund was $45,000 and Jim's fund was $42,000. And the first year of college for Kim, she withdrew $7,500. Jim, however, did not go on to higher education after high school, but went to work and took the funds of the $42,000 out. Now we discuss the tax consequences of these actions. In Part A, it asks us to determine whether or not the earnings on the education funds throughout the intervening 13 years is taxable. And so the answer is no. As the interest is accruing, since it's in a qualified education program, it is not taxable. Part B asks us what are the tax consequences to Kim and Albert, the father and one of the twins, of the $7,500 for the first semester's tuition. And it turns out that this $7,500, because they're qualified education expenses, means that there are no tax consequences to either Albert or Kim, because the funds were used for their intended purpose. Part C talks about the fact that Kim received a 10% reduction in tuition charges because of her participation in the qualified tuition plan. Because the discount related to the tuition program, there are no tax consequences for either Albert or Kim. And finally, Part D, what are the tax consequences to Albert and Jim of Jim's qualified tuition program being closed? Well, in this case, there are some consequences for Albert. Albert now needs to report as taxable income the gain that accrued throughout the 13 years, which in this case is $22,000, $42,000 value of the fund after 13 years minus the $20,000 that he invested. Also, there's a 10% penalty because the funds were not used for educational purposes on that gain. So 10% of the $22,000 is $2,200. So the tax consequence to reported on Form 5329 is a total of $24,200. If you have questions on these or any of the concepts we have in Chapter 5, please let me know.